On August 15, 1914, the United States completed one of the largest and most difficult engineering projects ever attempted. The Panama Canal established the first direct trade connection between the two largest oceans in the world, allowing the United States to access the Western Front and beyond from its eastern trading ports. The building of the Panama Canal catalyzed further U.S.-Panama cooperation and gave the United States a foothold in the region.
In 1970, the CIA recruited Manuel Noriega, lieutenant colonel and military intelligence chief of the Panama National Guard, to help the U.S. stop the spread of communism in Central America. In 1983, he was promoted to military dictator of Panama. Over the years, the U.S. government supported Noriega in his attempts to overthrow the Nicaraguan Sandinista government, a Marxist-inspired group.
However, in 1988, the U.S. renounced Noriega and indicted him for drug smuggling and money laundering. After Noriega prevented the election of Democratic President-elect Guillermo Endara, President George H.W. Bush approved Operation Just Cause. Bush himself describes the mission in a 1989 address to the nation.
In Panama, the goals of the United States have been to safeguard the lives of Americans, to defend democracy in Panama, to combat drug trafficking, and to protect the integrity of the Panama Canal Treaty.
While realists may argue that Bush's reasoning was realist because of his first goal of safeguarding American lives, Bush only mentions a relatively minor incident where Noriega's forces harmed 3 American servicemen. At the end of the Cold War, the other 3 reasonings behind intervention in Panama were more important and clearly liberalist. Liberalism, as defined by Andrew Moravcsik, posits that the relationship between states and the surrounding domestic and transnational society in which they are embedded critically shapes state behavior by influencing the social purposes underlying state preferences.
One of the main claims Bush laid out for the U.S. invasion of Panama was to defend and promote democracy. His predecessor, Ronald Reagan, agreed. We do want Noriega out of there and a return to a civilian democratic government. Liberalist Michael Doyle writes in his 1983 article, Kant, Liberal Legacies and Foreign Affairs, that the foundation of liberal foreign relations is democratic participation and representation. The United States intervening in Panama to establish a full democracy was a clear imposition of our preferences onto a foreign country.
Although the U.S. had ignored Noriega's drug involvement before, in 1986, the New York Times published an article revealing his involvement in drug trafficking, causing the public to react to the U.S. collaboration with Panama negatively. According to Moravcsik, liberalism is defined through preference. Liberalist states represent subsets of society, and their interests and foreign policy decisions are based off of these preferences. In observing the public's interest and acting as a state guided by liberalism, the U.S. intervened in Panama and overthrew Noriega.
The final reason for intervention was to uphold the Torrijos-Carter Treaties, established in 1977. The treaties guaranteed that Panama would gain control of the Panama Canal after 1999, ending the U.S. control, but maintaining neutrality of the area and allowing the U.S. to defend the canal if neutrality was breached. Worried that Noriega wouldn't uphold the neutrality of the canal, the U.S. intervened. While a realist would allow the treaty to dissolve, as they believe that all cooperation is temporary, the U.S. took a liberal view and took all action possible to uphold the Torrijos-Carter Treaties. In Perpetual Peace, Kant says, "No treaty of peace shall be held valid in which there is tacitly reserved matter for a war." While Kant was generally opposed to intervention, he would have approved of it in this case, as it was aimed at creating a perpetual peace. By overthrowing this one ruler, the U.S. attempted to ensure future peace with Panama.
Additionally, upholding the Torrijos-Carter Treaties was encouraged by commercial liberalism. Defined by Moravcsik, commercial liberalism explains state preferences through market incentives. By maintaining the neutrality of the treaties, the U.S. could protect their commercial interests in the Panama Canal.
After successful U.S. intervention and nation-building in Panama, the U.S. left power to Democratic President Guillermo Endara. In 2000, one of the 6 stated goals of the U.S. Army South was to continue to support democracy in Panama. The liberal mentality has persisted in determining the foreign policy and relations between the U.S. and Panama through the 21st century.